Hey guys, I'm back and it has been a good 3 weeks break for me. I last uploaded my videos about 3 weeks ago and I've taken a long break since. And I'm happy to be back. And why am I back now? Because Sonos just released 15.6 firmware update to all its Sonos speakers. Now, if you check the release notes, there were two main things that they mentioned. The first is that they actually removed the hardware control volumes for iOS devices. So for those of you who were able to previously control the volume levels of your Sonos devices through the up and down volume button, you can't actually do it now. And the lock screen also has the widget to control the levels and the Sonos system removed. So that is a bad news, but I kind of don't really miss it now because it has never worked consistently for me. Even in previous firmware versions, I have never actually seen that control and the up down button. And why is that so? Because Apple feels that it changes the way that an user will expect these buttons to do and perform on their iOS devices. On the lock screen, the volume control, it doesn't work as well. So not that I miss it, I do want that feature. It's just that I've never had it for quite a while. I don't know how to make it consistently appear anyway. Now, the second thing that they mentioned is that for some of the older Sonos devices, the update this time round is going to take a little bit longer. And from today onwards, after you update it, it will also take longer to reset those devices. Which devices? Those are the Sonos Play 1s, the Play 3s, and the Connect Amp, as well as a Sonos Sub Gen 1 and Gen 2. Now, I've tested the update. Not too big of an issue. It took a while, more than 10 minutes anyway, but that's because of the sheer number of systems that I have in the house right now for the update. So it's always taken that long. I haven't done resetting, so I don't know whether that's going to impact anything. And why did that happen? Why is this happening? Well, because those older devices, they have less memory, less storage, less capacity on the speaker itself. So the OS, the Sonos S2 OS, has gotten large to the point that it won't fit into those memory spaces. So it becomes a two-step process. If you see that the lights are blinking orange on your devices, it means that it is actually copying the update into a separate temporary location. And when it's blinking white, it's actually copying that then to the final permanent storage. I don't know whether there's a separate storage space or whether it's compressed or not, but maybe. I don't know how actually it works, but that's because the newer devices have more storage, like the Sonos Arc, the Beam Gen 2, or even the Beam, I think. The Era series, all no problems, only the slightly older devices. It should not impact you in any way. I'm sorry I went on a little bit before I went to the upfront summary, and I try to give you the upfront summary early in the video so you don't go hunting. But one big thing that they didn't say about in the release notes for 15.6 is that they solved one major issue with the Era 300. Now, previously, the Era 300 could not change the surround levels for the rear surround levels. Now, the Era 300, which is right there now, it actually has 3 channels built into one speaker. One is the side surround, which is the side that is facing the outer wall, which is further away from you, firing away from the main listening position. And there's also the rear surround, which is actually the inner drivers of the Era 300 firing towards the rear wall and bouncing towards you. That's the rear surround channel. And of course, there's the heights channel that is pointing upwards and firing sounds upwards for Atmos heights effect. So previously, when you were trying to control the volume levels using the surround levels and controlling the surround levels using the surround sliders, the rear channel volume wasn't actually being impacted. So it only changed the surround levels for the side, which is the one that is firing upwards. The inner drivers, no volume control. So did it solve the problem? Yes, it does. And I'll show you what I actually mean so you get a better understanding of what this problem is. Alright, so what I'll be doing here is to demonstrate the issue with the surround drivers when you are adjusting the surround levels on firmware 15.5, S2 15.5. And what I have on screen here is actually a sound file from Dolby Labs itself. And these are the Atmos test tones. And it will fire test tones from every channel. Like now, it will be firing from the left channel. And I have volume set at 60% so that the mic will pick up and you can hear for yourself what the issue is, right? So when I go to the Sonos app and I move on to the surround settings, if I were to try to adjust the surround audio levels for TV level, now is at 0. So I will go on to the point where I am firing off the right side surround, right? And this is with the Era 300. And when I click play, notice when I lower the levels, the surround sound level changes. So when I adjust the surround levels, the surround drivers for the side surrounds, they actually change volume. Now I'm going to move on to the rear surrounds, which is using the inner firing drivers, the drivers on the Era 300, which are closer to your ears and supposed to be firing against the rear wall. Now notice what happens to the surround levels, the sound levels, when I'm adjusting the TV level for the surround. So as you can hear for yourself, there are no changes in the levels at all. Sonos has recognized this, that this is a problem, and hopefully this fix 15.6 is supposed to fix this issue. So let's do the update and see whether the issue is really resolved. Okay, so Sonos S2 version 15.6 has been loaded. It took quite a bit of time given the number of Sonos systems I have around the house. It took about maybe 12-13 minutes or so. Some speakers are offline, but yes, it takes a little bit longer. But when the software has been updated, let's check the surround sound. And specifically, this is for the rear surround channel, not the side surround. The rear surround channel, where the inner facing the drivers nearer to you from the main listening position is faced. Let's see whether the surround sound levels affect those channels right now. So I'm going to be playing, and this is the rear surround at 0. Shifting it down, the surround level is now at -15 and it lowers the volume. Let me increase to +15. Okay, so as you can hear, now it works as it should. So for those of you who are experiencing louder than usual Era 300 output, that is because now it actually responds, the inner drivers, the rear surround drivers actually responds to level changes in your surround audio. So if you have that pumped up to anything that is +1 and above, you will notice that your Era 300 is now sounding quite a bit louder. So good job, Sonos. Thanks for that. We needed this. All right, so that's good news. So if you are wondering whether it is worth upgrading from 15.5, the previous version, to 15.6, I'm sure it's a go ahead, especially if you are running the Era 300 in surround configuration. Now, there's still one outstanding issue. I don't want to say it's a bug because to me, it is not a bug, which is that the Era 300, the center driver, is actually not firing any sound off when it's being set up as surround drivers. Now, when they are paired up in stereo mode, with a pair of Era 300 or even on its own and playing music, especially Atmos music, the center driver actually fires off. So you can hear the vocals are actually coming from there. But when they are deployed in surround configuration, the center driver, it gets disabled. And I actually personally think that there is a better way to do this because it actually smooths out the whole surround bubble quite well, and it gives a very even surround soundstage to the rear. Now, if you fire off the center, it will probably bring too much attention to itself. Now, of course, there's some middle ground. Some people will want the center driver to fire off, so maybe Sonos can enable a switch to allow users who want that feature turned on to turn it on, and for the rest of us who actually enjoy the Era 300 as it is, to leave it alone and not activate the center driver. Because for me personally, I do not want that to actually fire off. So that's the best way to satisfy both sides of the community. Because if you were to turn it on, then I might not be happy. Oh yes, I almost forgot about the sound signature, the frequency response sweep that I do for almost every single software update that Sonos push out. Now, when it came to 15.5, the sound signature was actually quite good. Everything was good. The bass was punchy, the trebles were clear and open. And if you look at the green curve that I'm going to be putting on screen right here, this is actually for 15.5. So it is a pretty flat. I had it smoothened out, of course, but it is a pretty flat response all the way from the bass end to the treble end. So I'm going to be pulling up the red curve here. Now the red curve is for 15.6. So this update actually brought down the whole response just a little bit, about 1 to 2 dB difference, more from the mid-range onwards. Now, at the base end, you're not going to be able to tell much of a difference. Actually, because the change is consistent and constant throughout the entire curve, you're not going to feel much of a difference. You might actually think that it's a little bit softer if you never played with the surround sliders ever before, but you just probably need to increase the volume by a couple of ticks more in order to bring the whole volume back up. And when doing so, in order to compensate for the volume, relatively speaking, your bass is going to come across as just a tad stronger. So if you are imagining that your system is just a little bit softer, it is not your mind playing trick on you. And because your ears are that sensitive to begin with in the first place, you can just compensate by adding a couple of takes to the volume. So that is all. And I do believe that this is still a very reasonable and respectable sound curve coming from a soundbar setup. Okay, so this is actually a good update. Thank you, Sonos. For those of you who are interested in the test tone files, I will provide a link down in the description below, or maybe I'll provide a QR code right here, and you can scan the QR code. It will bring you to the page where I host all these files. You can download the 7.1.4 Dolby Atmos test tones so that you can test your system out. You will be quite surprised because actually the Sonos Arc coupled with an Era 300 and a sub or two will actually give you a 7.1.4 system. Hopefully this version 15.6 brings you more joy to your Sonos system, and I'll see you in the next episode. Oh, by the way, I actually have some new speaker stands for the Era 100 and the Era 300. So my next video, I'll probably do something about that. But for those of you who are interested in checking out whether stands makes a difference to your sound, maybe check out this video here where I review a pair of stands which I've been using until today, but I should be switching over to the Era 300 stands pretty soon. I'll see you in the next video.